You're listening to the micro version of the Savage Lovecast at savage.love.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
Alexander Blackwelder, a youth pastor in East Tupelo, Mississippi, denied bail last week after being charged with raping a 16-year-old girl he met at his church. An interesting thing about Alex, something lawmakers in Tennessee might want to take note of, not a drag queen. Two youngish pastors, brothers, Clark and Matthew Travis, don't know if they're youth pastors, but they're certainly young pastors based on their photographs. Two brothers, pastors, arrested last week after allegedly assaulting 5 children at 2 churches where they served as pastors in Texas. Also, not drag queens. The youth pastor in California, Jonathan Jenkins, who last week was sentenced to 12 years in prison for sexually assaulting a 12-year-old girl, not a drag queen. A youth pastor in Massachusetts, Russell Davis, who raped 3 boys at the church where he worked last week, sentenced to 4 years in prison, which seems short to me. Also last week, a pastor in Oklahoma charged with indecent acts with a minor. Also last week, a pastor in Wisconsin pleaded guilty to indecent acts with a minor. And last week, a Sunday school teacher in Michigan was arrested on child sex charges. I could go on and on and on. I could go on reading the names of more pastors, youth pastors, Sunday school teachers, and priests who were arrested or tried or pleaded guilty or were found guilty or were sentenced just last week, because there are more, lots more, from just last week. And none of them were drag queens, and none of them were trans women, and none of them were non-binary elementary school teachers who posted something sensible to TikTok, or something stupid, or something outrageous, or something very deeply cringe to TikTok, and wound up on libs of TikTok and then spent a whole week fielding death threats. None of them are the people, right-wing hate mongers like the hate mongers behind libs of TikTok, are trying to convince people are a threat to their children. The real threats to your kids are right there, in your churches, up there, on the altar. And yet it's drag bars they're going after, and drag queen story hours. Anti-drag legislation is moving through state legislatures in more than 20 states, most of them red states. Right now, there's a bill that's passed the legislature in Tennessee, sitting on the desk of Governor Bill Lee, awaiting his expected signature, a bill that restricts drag performances and could land drag queens who violate this new law in prison for up to 6 years. The CBC sums the new law up. The Tennessee bill criminalizes what it calls adult cabaret entertainment anywhere it could be seen by children, such as, a pride event, and defines such entertainment as adult-oriented. It's an amendment of existing state law preventing, quote, adult-oriented businesses from operating within 1,000 feet of schools, public parks, or places of worship. Is that what they're doing in churches in Tennessee? Worship? Because when I Google Tennessee and pastor or youth pastor or church, I don't get a lot of stories about worship. For a while, every time I saw a story about a youth pastor or priest who raped a child, I would say on Twitter or in my column or on my blog or on my podcast, if kids got raped at Denny's as often as they get raped at church, every Denny's in the country would be on fire right now. I kind of stopped saying that because there are crazy people out there, and I didn't want some unhinged person who followed me to go and burn down a Denny's for no reason, or for a Denny's to burn down for some reason, and then some unhinged person accuse me of incitement to arson. So instead, I started saying if kids got raped by clowns as often as they get raped by preachers, it would be against the law to take your kids to the circus, because there really aren't that many circuses out there anymore. When I think about it, I suppose banning drag shows does drag one tiny favor. It makes drag transgressive again. But it won't make drag go away. And bans won't stop people, mostly gay men, but not only gay men these days, from doing drag. And I'm not convinced that's the intention of the people behind these anti-drag bills. Sure, they say they want to stop people from doing drag where a child might see it, which they call grooming now. drag, like kids might see at a drag queen story hour, or in Mrs. Doubtfire, or Little Mermaid, or Some Like It Hot, or in Shakespeare's As You Like It, or Twelfth Night. We could take these motherfuckers at their word, I suppose. They just want kids to be safe. But with rapey youth pastors and priests running amok all over the country with stories like the one I rattled off at the start of this intro, making the news every single day, these people pointing their fingers at drag queens, seems to me that they're trying, knowingly, intentionally, trying to point parents away from the real threat to their children, the real danger. Youth pastors and priests and choir directors, not drag queens. So, when Lauren Boebert tweets, "Take your children to church, not drag bars," it's not demagoguery, or it's not just demagoguery. It's complicity. It's aiding and abetting. At some point, you have to look at the news and conclude that this woman and others like her are actively and knowingly running interference for the people who are actually a danger to kids, who are, again, at church, not drag bars. I want to close talking about a photo that I love. Nancy is always reminding me that podcasts are not a visual medium. I can't show you a photo, but I'm going to describe it, and we're going to post a link to it in the show notes. So if you want to see it, you can go take a quick look. It's a pretty famous photo of a man in a dress, a man under arrest for wearing a dress, who's stepping out of the back of a paddy wagon. Now, as a person of Irish descent, I should be offended by that expression, paddy wagon. But as a person of Irish descent, I have a sense of humor, so it's a wash. Anyway, this guy in a dress, under arrest, having his photograph taken, is beaming, smiling at the photographer as he lifts his skirts and shows a little leg while he's stepping out of that paddy wagon, looking like he's stepping out onto a red carpet, when he's actually stepping into a police station where he's about to be charged with the crime of being a man in a dress. This photo, by famous street photographer Arthur Weegee Fellig, was taken in New York City in 1939, a time when you could lose your apartment, your job, your family, and your freedom for being gay. It was a time when it was literally against the law for a bar or a restaurant to serve a drink to a homosexual. And as George Chauncey, writing in The Atlantic a few years ago, reminds us, in the 1930s, New York's police department's Cabaret Bureau prohibited the employment of anyone who was or pretended to be a homosexual, an expansive rule designed to prevent queer-themed entertainment. So, bans on queer-themed entertainment, nothing new, and, as that photograph and others like it prove, bans on queer-themed entertainment didn't stop drag queens from dressing up and going out and being entertaining. While looking for that photo, I found others of men in drag under arrest, many smiling, some by Weegee, some by other photographers. Some of the queens in the photos look nervous, some look unhappy, but they all have a look of defiance in their faces that when you consider the time in which they lived and the courage it took to be themselves at that time is inspiring for us in our time. Now, I don't know her. The man in the dress stepping out of the paddy wagon in that Weegee photo from 1939, I don't know her. Could have been a drag queen. She certainly has a drag queen's flair and a drag queen's attitude, but she could have been a trans woman, or he could have been a straight male crossdresser. Whoever he was, whoever she was, whatever the law said at the time, whatever the cops did at the time, she couldn't be stopped. If Lily Law couldn't stop drag then, Lily Law, along with Betty Bracelets, gay slang for cops in the 1930s, if Lily Law couldn't stop queens then, couldn't keep queens at home or keep queens closeted, this clearly and obviously unconstitutional law in Tennessee, and laws like it that may pass in other states soon, not going to stop drag now. I'm going to post another link in the show notes to another photograph. It's of Governor Bill Lee of Tennessee in high school, in drag, standing with other classmates, girls in suits, boys in dresses, clearly having a ball. Bill Lee in drag is beaming and showing some leg. Not bad leg. Had nothing to be ashamed of in the leg department. But if he signs that bill that's sitting on his desk, if he doesn't veto it, he's going to have something to be ashamed of now. All right, coming up on today's show, on the Micro Savage Lovecast, tons of your Qs, lots of my As, and on the Magnum Savage Lovecast, subscribe at savage.love. Writer Magdalene Taylor joins me to talk about her recent opinion piece in the New York Times. People are fucking less. Taylor has a solution, fucking more. Also for Magnum subscribers this week, Jamie Kirchick returns to Sex and Politics to talk about his exclusive interview with disgraced actor and purported cannibalism fetishist Armie Hammer. Look for that in your feeds, Magnum subs, feeds, on Thursday. All right, let's do this. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Dipsea. Dipsea is an app full of hundreds of short, sexy audio stories designed by women for women. Get an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipseastories.com/savage. Support for today's show, support we are very grateful for, comes from Stamps.com. With Stamps.com, you can access all the amazing services of the post office right from your desk in your own home, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just click, print, mail, and you are done. It could not be easier. And right now, use Savage for this special offer. Includes up to $55 worth of free postage, a digital scale, and a 4-week trial. Do not wait. Go to Stamps.com, and before you do anything else, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in Savage. That's Stamps.com. Enter SAVAGE.
Hi, Dan. I'm a cis gay man who has been with the same man in a monogamous relationship for 6 years. And about 2.5 years ago, we got married so I could come to the country where I live now. And it was a paper marriage that there was no one in attendance at the ceremony. And my family keeps asking when the ceremony will be. And I keep sort of putting it off and say, oh, it'll be, maybe a year from now. And that year keeps getting pushed off again and again because I'm not sure I want to spend the rest of my life with someone who is insistent upon being in a monogamous relationship. And I love my in-laws dearly. I love my husband dearly. I really want to be with him forever. I think about him all the time and how much I love him and how much I share with him and how much I enjoy being with him. And when we have sex, it's very good. And I enjoy his presence. I'm not as attracted to him as I once was because it's been 6 years and it's tough to maintain the new relationship energy. But I don't know. I go to a gym to all the time to look better and gain muscle. And that's something he sort of resents me for a little bit because he's thinking that I'm holding him to some kind of impossible beauty standard. But I would just think that it would be nice if he made a little bit more of an effort in that arena. And if he's not going to, I would still love to be with him, but I would also like some kind of relationship on the side, like not anything romantic, but just hookups here and there. And I brought up the idea of opening our relationship and it made him really hurt. And he basically would choose being in a closed relationship with someone else over being in an open relationship with me. And that hurt me because I would rather be with him in any kind of relationship than to be with someone else, because I don't want to be without him. Whenever there's a weekend goes by without him, I miss him terribly. And I wish that he would just spend more time thinking about what it means to me to want to sleep with other people. But it's going to be really hard for me to convince him, and I'm not sure what to do. And I'm also worried about what kind of effect this would have on our social lives if we were to break up over something like this.
Someone has to call someone's bluff here. His position is monogamy with you or monogamy with someone else, and your position is non-monogamy with me or monogamy without me. You're not going to be happy in this relationship. Doesn't sound like you're entirely happy in this relationship now. As much as you love him, as good as the sex is when you have it, you're not going to be happy if you can't have him and some sexual freedom, some ability to enjoy outside sexual contacts and have him in your life and be in this marriage and be in this relationship too. And it sounds like he might not be happy if the relationship was open, but you've been doing the monogamous thing and you know that you're not happy with it and this is not sustainable for you long term, he doesn't know whether he could be happy in an open relationship with you or with somebody else, because he's never been in an open relationship with you or anyone else. And as unpopular a guy as it makes me when I say things like this, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. What does he think is going to happen if he breaks up with you because you want the freedom to sometimes have sex with other people, hookups with other people? What does he think is going to happen? He's going to wind up in a relationship with another gay man. Most gay male relationships are ethically non-monogamous or just non-monogamous. Unethically non-monogamous. Everybody I've ever known who is gay, who told me that they were in a monogamous relationship, either was being cheated on or was cheating themselves. As unpopular as it makes me to say that, not to cast aspersions on any gay male couples out there listening right now in the car who are monogamous. I'm sure there are gay male couples out there who are successfully monogamous. My sample is skewed because I don't think I've ever met one of those couples. Most, thank God, of the gay couples that I've known were ethically non-monogamous. Even if they'd been monogamous for a while, there came a time where they negotiated some agreement. They came to some terms about outside sexual contact. That's what you and your husband are going to have to do if he's going to stay your husband. And if you're going to continue to honor the commitment that you've made to him. So far, you've honored that monogamous commitment. You don't want to betray him. You want to do this ethically, which means you're going to have to force the issue because sooner or later you're going to fuck somebody else at the gym or somewhere else. You are going to cheat. You are going to collapse under the pressure. You're going to cave. Now, a lot of people do what they need to do to stay married and stay sane. You might be one of those people who does what he needs to do to stay married and stay sane and tell him what he wants to hear and fuck around a little on the side very discreetly. But you don't want to do that. If you don't want to be unethically non-monogamous, you're going to have to call his bluff. He already called yours. He told you when you asked about opening the relationship, and he was hurt. And a lot of people are hurt when they first have that conversation with their partner, if their partner is the one who initiates it and not them. And a lot of people get past the hurt. But you're going to have to walk in there and say, look, I don't want to cheat on you. If and when I have sex with somebody else, I want it not to be cheating, which means we're going to have to figure it out. An accommodation is going to have to be made if you want to stay married to me. He played the if you wanted to stay married to him card. You're going to have to play that same card back. There's just no avoiding the confrontation that you need to have. And it's a confrontation that a lot of people have had with their spouses and remained spouses. There may have been a time where it was ugly and a lot of shit was being discussed, said, processed, but a lot of couples got past it and are happy to still be together. The only way you're going to find out if you two might be one of those couples is, again, to call his bluff.
Hey, Dan, this is regarding the piss play question on your recent episode. Something you almost touched on and something I've been wondering is if somebody is an alcoholic and doesn't drink, but they ingest some of that piss from the 2 pitchers of beer that someone has had, are they getting any alcohol that they shouldn't be getting?
If somebody drinks a couple of pitchers of beer and then you wait long enough for their piss to be running beer clear a couple of hours later, yeah, there's going to be trace amounts of alcohol in their urine. A very tiny percentage of the alcohol that we ingest is eliminated through our body in our urine, but it's just a trace amount. But yeah, if someone's into piss and is also a sober person, an alcoholic in recovery and wants to avoid even trace amounts of alcohol on principle or to be safe, Might not want to drink the piss of someone who's been drinking a couple of pitchers of beer a few hours earlier. Also going to want to avoid that person's sweat and their breath, which are two other routes that the body eliminates alcohol from the system. There's a long list of things you're going to want to avoid if you're the kind of alcoholic who wants to avoid even trace amounts of alcohol, or the kind of straight edge person who doesn't want to cede any bragging rights at all, or the kind of alcoholic who may legitimately worry that your addict brain will seize on the consumption of any amount of alcohol, however minute, to rationalize a full-blown relapse. You're going to want to avoid drinking that piss and eating ripe bananas and ripe pears, certain kinds of rye breads. Ketchup may have more alcohol in it, naturally fermenting alcohol in it, than piss is going to. So you might want to stick with mustard, which can also have trace amounts of alcohol in it, not to ruin mustard for everybody as well. But in answer to your question, yes, if somebody has a couple of pitchers of beer and then you drink that person's piss, you are ingesting trace amounts of alcohol.
This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Dipsy, because if you wear headphones, your coworkers won't know what you're listening to, right? Dipsy is an app full of hundreds of short, sexy audio stories designed by women for women. They bring scenarios to life with immersive soundscapes and realistic characters. Here are a couple you could be listening to right now, well, after you finish the Lovecast. When Reese touches down in Budapest, she has an invitation from Juliet to come join her at the spa. They meet in a hot tub and then make their way to a sauna for a little more privacy. And here's another one. Jackie returns to a sex party with Sebastian and the stranger, but this time she wants everyone to see what they do to her. Oh my God. And that's better for your brain than some true crime podcast, am I right? Radically inclusive, Dipsy has stories for straight and queer listeners, and 56% of stories are voice acted by people of color, and the voices are simply amazing. New content is released every week, so in between listening to your favorite stories again and again, you can always find something new to explore. They also have soothing sleep stories, wellness sessions, and sexy stories you can read. Let Dipsy be your go-to place to spice up your me time, explore your fantasies, relax and unwind, or heat things up with a partner. For listeners of our show, Dipsy's offering an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipsystories.com/savage. That's 30 days of full access for free when you go to DIPSEA stories.com/savage. dipsystories.com/savage.
Hey, Dan and listeners. I am calling because I find myself in a situation where I'm not sure how to feel, think, or react. I was with a married man last year for almost a year, and since his wife found out about us, I haven't talked to him or have any sort of communication with him until today, that I found out that he has cancer through a friend that we have in common. He's still married. He's still with her, and he told my friend not to tell me. So there's like this straight boundary of not like contact him. And before we were together as lovers, we were best friends. We were very close for years until one thing led to another. So I'm very sad about this news. I wish I could call him, talk to him like we used to, and share resources, all kinds of resources for him to heal and manage the situation as best possible. But at the same time, I want to respect him, his wishes of me not contacting him, and like all the boundaries that needed to be set. So I don't know, like, if I don't call him or contact him, I don't know how to deal with this, because I'm I'm very sad, and I just don't know what to do or feel or think.
You say you don't know what to do or feel or think. You should do nothing. You should feel sad, and you should think of him. Keep him in your thoughts. I'm an atheist. My mother was a religious person. When someone was sick, when my mother was sick, she knew not to ask me to pray. She would ask me to keep her or someone else that she was praying for in my thoughts. Keep him in your thoughts. Don't reach out. He doesn't want you to know this. You don't know what stress it might cause him at a time when stress can have a deleterious impact on someone's immune system. You don't want to put this man who is probably still working to patch up his marriage, the woman he chose over you, the relationship that he was already in when you two began your affair. He's probably still working on that. And now a cancer diagnosis. Now he's going through cancer treatments as well. If you love him, if you feel for him, the last thing you would want to do is even send him, if he didn't want you to know about this, an innocuous letter, even to send him a letter to saying, I'm keeping you in my thoughts. That could cause him stress. He may then worry that you're about to knock on his front door or contact his wife or attempt to use his health issues or crisis to reinsert yourself somehow into his life, into his affections in a way that he set a boundary. He set a boundary that he clearly wants you on the other side of. He doesn't want you in his life right now. You say you wish you could help him heal and manage. That's not your role. To help him heal, to help him manage, to get him to doctor's appointments. It's not your role. That's his wife's role. I'm sure that's painful to think about. You still love him. You wish you were still with him. If you love him and you want him to get better, the last thing you should do is create the appearance of some effort on your part to opportunistically take advantage of the fact that he has cancer to violate the boundary that he set. So do nothing, which is what he's asked you to do. Feel sad for him, for you, and keep him in your thoughts. If he wants to reconnect with you, if he wants to hear from you, if he thinks that you need to know this or would welcome your help in healing or managing his illness, he will reach out to you. He hasn't, which is essentially him reasserting the boundary that he already set with you. Your respect for that boundary, that's what you can do for him right now. Not nothing, that. Respect that boundary. 2023, we're in you, not too deep in you, but in you. Business owners, you're not so deep into 2023 that you can't still level up your business and set your year up for even more success. Get ahead of the competition or just beat your own personal business best by using Stamps.com to mail and ship. Stamps.com lets you print your own postage and shipping labels right from your home or office. It's ready to go in minutes so you can get back to running your business sooner. Postage rates just increased again. Luckily, Stamps.com has the best discounts in the industry with rates you literally can't find anywhere else, like up to 84% USPS and UPS. Plus, Stamps.com automatically tells you your cheapest and fastest shipping options. For 25 years, Stamps.com has been indispensable for over 1 million businesses. Get access to the USPS and UPS shipping services you need to run your business right from your computer anytime, day or night. No lines, no traffic, no waiting. And if you sell products online, Stamps.com seamlessly connects with every major marketplace and shopping cart. Use Stamps.com to print postage wherever you do business. All you need is a computer and printer. They even send you a free scale, so you'll have everything you need to get started. And if you need a package pickup, you can easily schedule one through your Stamps.com dashboard. Set your business up for success in 2023 by getting started with Stamps.com today. Sign up with promo code SAVAGE for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the page, and enter code SAVAGE. Let them know the Lovecast sent you. Stamps.com, Click on the mic, enter code SAVAGE.
Hi, Dan. I'm a 40-year-old female living in Switzerland. I moved here because of my ex-boyfriend. We broke up about 3 years ago, but still live in the same town. And the last 1.5 years or so that we were going out, we had an open relationship, which originally was his idea. And it kind of veered into a poly situation, which didn't go very well. I did a few things that were quite inconsiderate and hurtful to him, which, among other things, I would say led to a breakup. But in my perception, we did have some pretty major communication barriers that we never really managed to overcome. He's still having a very hard time with the breakup. And even though we have met and tried to make amends a few times, we even went to a breakup counselor, he always just seems to circle back to being angry at me and also blaming me for some other things, his pain and other things that go wrong in his life. For example, the fact that he doesn't have children. We had been together for 5 years, and during that time, I became quite good friends with some of his friends who I had met through him. He now gets quite upset when he sees me hanging out with his friends and reduced contact with some of them because they refused to break off contact with me. And now there was a situation last week where I was invited to a friend's place, and there's a group chat. He wasn't around. There's a group chat where somebody posted a picture which also had me in it. I'm not part of this chat, so I didn't know. And my ex-boyfriend has sent me a message asking me to stay away from his friends and let him have his space. I feel that he doesn't really have the right to dictate who I spend time with or who his friends spend time with, for that matter. I would very much like to at least peacefully coexist so we can be in the same room or have some friends in common. So I would like to ask, does he have a point here? Should I not be hanging out with his friends? And what should I do? Should I suggest a face-to-face conversation and try to explain my point, which hasn't really worked very well in the past?
You have every right to hang out with the people you met through your ex-boyfriend, who were maybe originally friends he brought to the relationship. But when he introduced you to them, he opened up the door to the possibility that they would become your friends too, as indeed they have. You have every right to hang out with your friends, even the friends that you met through your ex-boyfriend. Your ex-boyfriend needs to grow the fuck up. He also needs to recognize that his friends, the friends he brought to this relationship, the friends that he introduced you to, are finding his antics unpleasant. You say that they're cutting back on the amount of time they're spending with him because they don't want to deal with his bullshit. But just because I don't think you should put up with his bullshit, just because I think you should be able to hang out with his friends, that's not going to convince him that you should be able to hang out with these people that he perceives to be his property, to be his friends that he lent you and now can yank back because the relationship is over. And so the question you're facing really isn't, should I be able to or should I not be able to hang out with people that I met through my ex-boyfriend, his friends originally, my friends now. The question is, how much of his bullshit are you willing to endure to remain friends with these people, to hold on to these social connections that you made during the relationship with your ex-boyfriend? Seems to me that the thing you have to sacrifice is this mental image you have, this wish that you have. And it's a reasonable wish, and it's a lovely mental image that you and your ex-boyfriend could be civil and be in the same room together at the same time, and for it to be friendly, and for you two to use the word that you used, coexist peacefully. Your boyfriend has indicated, your ex-boyfriend has indicated that that is not possible. He's not going to let that happen. And he is still angry about the breakup for bullshit reasons. You say that he's angry that he doesn't have kids. He can have kids until he's 80. He's a man. He can have kids until he's dead. There's nothing stopping him right now from forming a new relationship and having children with somebody else, except maybe for his repulsive personality and assholey behavior, which I'm sure is probably one of the reasons you ended the relationship with him, or the relationship ended, or you two decided to end it, but you were happy for it to be over. And maybe a reason why nobody else wants to get into a relationship with him right now. It's been my experience, personal and professional, that people who run around acting the way your ex-boyfriend is acting to you and about you to his friends is the kind of person who complains about their ex to anybody they might begin to date. And that shit is repulsive, which is why he's still single, which is why he hasn't found somebody else who might want to have a kid with him. Zooming out for a second, everybody file this away. You meet somebody, you date somebody, you live with them, you're together for 5 years, you're thinking maybe about marriage or kids. You introduce this person to friends and family. Unless that person turned out to be an abusive monster, you have no right to say to people, him or me, or her or me, or you're my friends, not their friend. You have to cut them out. Maybe you get 6 months or a year where you ask your friends that maybe you introduced your ex to, who are now friends with your ex, to be considerate, maybe to cut you a little bit of slack while you process the trauma of the breakup and the wound has some time to heal over. But if after a year the wound hasn't healed over and you're going to be buttsore about your friends hanging out with somebody that they regard as a friend now because you brought that person into their life, that wound hasn't healed over. It's your responsibility to go cauterize that fucking wound with a therapist. Don't make yourself unbearable. Don't be obnoxious to your ex or to your friends about your ex or to anybody you're hoping will be your future or current about your ex.
Hey, Dan. I'm a gay man living on the West Coast, and I have a bit of a question for you regarding Dom-sub dynamics. I'm pretty young. I'm 21. I thought I was a sub. It turns out I'm actually more of a Dom. And I'm struggling to find resources. I'm struggling to find ways for me to learn how to be a Dom. I was wondering if you had any suggestions, any readings, any advice for blooming Doms like myself. I want to be a Dom that, I mean, of course I want a sub to serve me, but as you know, a Dom-sub relationship is a relationship stemming inequality. And I want to learn more how to do that.
Experience may be the best resource for a blooming young dominant, but you don't want to be the incompetent, bumbling Dom, which is why it is a cliche. It's often stated, it's true, that the best Doms are people who've subbed. You've had some experience subbing. You need a mentor. You need someone in your life who's a Dom that you can sub for and maybe Dom other guys with. Now, a lot depends on the kind of Domming and subbing that you want to do. Used to be back in the days, if you're looking for reading, you want to read something about old guard style DS and S&M, leaning heavily into protocol and hierarchy, you could pick up the Leatherman's Handbook by Larry Townsend and get a picture of what that sort of era of BDSM and the gay male SM subculture was like and what those relationships were like. But these days, DS sex, that's a broad term, broad category. Masters, slaves, Doms, subs, alphas, betas, sirs, pups, handlers. There's lots of different sort of iterations and styles and expressions of DSX these days. So I'm curious, it would be relevant to know what kind of Dom sex or dominance appeals to you and what kind of service from a sub appeals to you. If you want to do a little bit of reading, if it's S&M you're talking about, Painfully Obvious and Irreverent Unauthorized Manual for Leather, SM by Robert DeVault, Screw the Roses, Send Me the Thorns by Molly Devon, Playing Well with Others by Lee Harrington and former Savage Lovecast guest Molina Williams. If you want to read a little bit of old school SM erotica, Mr. Benson by John Preston, No Shades of Grey, a collection of the erotic DS stories of Aaron Travis. But ideally, I think what you need is a mentor, somebody into S&M or DS with a lot more experience, someone who can show you the ropes, as they say, because the best Doms, even if they aren't subs, have subbed. So at 21, I would urge you to continue subbing, maybe not as, the lowest rung on the ladder sub, but as the alpha in a relationship where there's a dom above you and a sub or two below you. Because subbing for a really great dom is still the best way to learn to be a really great dom yourself.
Hey, Dan. I'm a poly bi 28-year-old. So I've noticed that with cis men that I'm attracted to, there is only really one specific type aesthetically that I find really sexy and really attractive. The rest, sometimes they can be cute, but just not really my cup of tea compared to cis women or trans women or non-binary people. I noticed there's more like a vast array of beauty. About a year ago, I ended a relationship with a cis man. I was sure I was going to spend the rest of my life with him, and I was so physically attracted to him, but it was a terrible breakup. He really, really hurt me, and I just learned that he wasn't emotionally mature enough to be in the relationship that I was looking for. So wish him well, but it was a shitty breakup. Anyway, cut to a year later. I've had a lot of queer experiences this year, a lot of group experiences, and I thought, hey, I'm kind of in the mood to date like a cis boy again. I kind of always imagined being poly that a cis man would be like my anchor partner, and then exploring other queer relationships outside of that. So anyway, I found this guy. He's great. He's really ambitious. He's got really clear communication. He's queer as fuck. Yeah, he's a lawyer, so he has a lot more ambition than my ex did. But here's the thing. He looks identical to my ex. Like, it's a little creepy. I was looking at his Instagram and being like, oh, God, this is so scary. But the truth is, I'm so attracted to him. And it's rare for me to be attracted to cis men like that. And I guess a part of it is insecurity of like, what will people think? Because if I get into a relationship with this guy, everyone will think, oh, this is just like the sign that I'm not over my ex or anything. But man, he is beautiful. And my ex was very beautiful too. So yeah, I know everybody has a type, but this is like a scary resemblance. So what do you think? Is this a red flag for me?
If having a type is a red flag, well, then there are red flags everywhere and kind of cheapens the meaning of red flag. Date this guy so he looks like your ex. So what? I was dating this guy who was about 6 foot tall and had long blonde hair. We were together for a year. We broke up, and I started dating this guy who was 6 foot tall, had long blonde hair. That guy was Terry. We're still together 30 years later. Yeah, date the guy who looks like your ex. You may notice, maybe a couple of your queer friends may notice, if you have friends who knew your ex, if they bring it up, laugh it off. Say, yeah, I have a type, or you can pass it off if you prefer as a coincidence. When anybody who knew me back in the day gave me grief because my new boyfriend Terry looked so much like my ex-boyfriend, I just said, yeah, I like him tall, I like him long-haired, not necessarily blonde. Blonde was a coincidence. But yeah, so sue me. I have a type. You have a type. This is not a crisis. This is an opportunity. And who knows? Maybe the guy who came along who looks just like your ex-boyfriend is going to be your future queer husband, and you guys are going to be tearing it up together for decades to come. But don't not date him. I mean, what's the advice I'm supposed to give you? What's the alternate here? Am I supposed to tell you not to date this guy you're into just because he looks like your ex? Why are you telling yourself not to date this guy that you're into just because he looks like your ex? You have a type when it comes to cis men. You have much broader taste when it comes to literally everyone else. That's fine. That's fine. You're not doing anything wrong. Fuck this dude. Literally. Physically, fuck this dude. And then date this dude. And then see where it goes. All right, before we get to your response calls, let's read some of the great comments you guys left in the comment thread on last week's show at savage.love. In my Valentine's Day intro, I mentioned a certain kind of sex that doesn't have a name. Makeup sex, breakup sex, maintenance sex, pity sex. We've all been there. We've all done those things. We all know what those words mean. But the sex you have on Valentine's Day with someone you're about to dump because you don't want them to realize on Valentine's Day or their birthday or Christmas that you're about to dump them, what should that kind of sex be called? Waleed has a suggestion. I propose rear guard action. It contains both action and rear in a punny way, but the phrase as a whole has a metaphorical, i.e. non-military intent of saying stuff to do while retreating to minimize the damages from the retreat. I love that. Thank you, Waleed. Rear guard action, that's what it is from now on. JPW jumps in with some more suggestions for couples who don't have kids but don't like the implications of either child-free or childless. JPW suggests aparental, I guess like asexual or aromantic. Also unscrambled in homage to Dan's use of the phrase scramble your DNA together, but that does leave out adopted kids. Oriah suggests simply non-parents. Robbie writes, to the couple looking for something more than friends but less than poly, I think what you're looking for is friends with benefits that are actually friends. People you can watch movies with, share emotions and connections, and also have sex with. Robbie continues, after some unsatisfying hookups on Grindr, I changed my profile to explicitly say that that was what I was looking for, and I found it. And finally, minor offense feels a bit queasy after listening to my conversation with Dr. Rachel Gelman, during which we discussed whether straight men should keep vibrators in their nightstands for female partners who need them to come. I dated a guy who had a small vibrator in his bedside table, minor offense writes, and he would use it on me, and I never thought about if it was new or not, and now I feel a little sick. Take comfort, minor offense, if that guy was good about cleaning his dick between uses, and dicks can transmit STIs. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and assume he was good about cleaning that vibrator between uses too. Thanks to everyone who commented on the show at savage.love. I read all your comments. I love them. Please keep them coming. And thanks for posting about the show to your own social media accounts. We really appreciate that. And now, something else we really appreciate, listener response calls.
Hi, Dan. I wanted to respond to the caller who was interested in how to initiate a sex party. I wanted to suggest that he could start it with a game of Spin the Bottle. I've been hosting Spin the Bottle parties for years now. The basics of it are that it is a consent and negotiation-based game where when the bottle lands on someone, you don't just kiss, you ask for something that you want, and then the other person can say yes, no, yes and, or no but. Negotiations can continue until you agree on something or you get a hard no. The game starts by setting group and individual boundaries. Then people can ask for hugs, kisses, massages, whispered affirmations, handjobs, or whatever. The more elaborate or specific, the better. It's a good way to get guests horny, make connections, and give them practice asking for what they want.
Hey, Dan. I just had to laugh listening to the guy who, with his girlfriend, wants to have a sort of an extra relationship that's but apparently not polyamorous. But he needs to really like the person or lowercase love the person, as does his partner. And how do they find a word that will tell people what they're looking for? And I'm just dying because guess what, dude? That's how most people go through dating. You want a relationship, and whatever word you come up with doesn't matter because they're going to ghost you. They're going to just want a one-night stand. They're just going to want to have sex. Welcome to dating. No word is going to be able to protect you from people who are jerks.
Hey, Dan, I'm calling in response to episode 852, when you and Dr. Gelman were discussing whether or not straight men should have vibrators on hand for women that they might take home for a one-night stand. I think the answer is an obvious yes. It shows that you are invested in your lover's pleasure. And from lesbian land, I'm here to tell you that certainly we expect to see vibrators, dildos, strap-ons, all kinds of toys in our partner's bedside tables. And if you're really concerned about whether or not she's going to think it's clean, you could also have it sitting out next to some toy cleaner. There's plenty of high-end toy cleaner out there on the market. You could hand her the vibrator and also the toy cleaner, let her know if she wants to go to the bathroom and give it another wipe, she could, but it's perfectly clean to use. I think we need to just expect more from straight men. If they can wipe down their dick after sex, they can also wipe down a Hitachi. And yeah, make sure their sheets are clean too. What's up with that?
And we're going to leave it there. Got a question for next week's Lovecast or something to say about something I said on this week's Lovecast? You can go to savage.love/askdan to record your question or comment, or you can use the voice memo app on your phone and email your question or comment to q@savage.love. Hey, Seattle, Hump 2023 is in you with screenings at On the Boards through March 11th. Portland, Denver, Madison, Chicago, and many, many more cities with an all-new collection of hot, funny, sexy, and sometimes shocking new short dirty movies. Go to humpfilmfest.com for tickets to screenings and to find out about your streaming options. Go to humpfilmfest.com/Europe for tickets to Hump's upcoming screenings in Vienna, Brussels, Zurich, Berlin, and Munich. Also coming up Thursday, March 16th, I'll be hosting another Savage Love Live, a live Zoom show exclusively for our Magnum subs. My subs get the extra long ad-free Lovecast, the Sex and Politics podcast, 2 columns every week, Savage Love and Struggle Session, where I respond to reader and listener comments, AMAs, and so much more. Go to savage.love/subscribe today so that you can join us for Savage Love Live on March 16th. Follow me on Instagram and now Spottable at Dan Savage. I'm also on Post News and still on Twitter at Fake Dan Savage. Follow Magdalene Taylor on Twitter at Magda J. Taylor and check out her newsletter, Many Such Cases, at magdalene.substack.com. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian and me and the tech-savvy at-risk youth and Nancy. We will all be back at you next week with an installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thank you for downloading.